Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, and today I want to discuss a recent Q&A that the Liquid Horse, one of the BattleBit devs, took part in because he had some interesting things to say about the Battlefield franchise. Before we begin though, as always, if you guys do enjoy the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, that way you won't miss out on any future videos. Thank you guys so much for your support as always. So unless you've been living under a rock, or maybe you've just been playing too much Zelda or Diablo 4 like I have, you probably haven't missed that BattleBit has been making waves recently, and it's made Battlefield look pretty bad. In terms of player numbers, they have well exceeded, I think, everybody's expectations, both in terms of copies sold, which is over 2 million, and concurrent players, which sits at 86,000 as the all-time peak on Steam, and 58,000 for the last 24 hours, which is actually excellent retention there. BattleBit is of course only available on Steam, whereas Battlefield is multi-platform, so perhaps it's not directly comparable, but nevertheless impressive numbers, I'm sure you'll agree. Especially when you consider that this is a game made by 3 people, whereas Battlefield was made by 4 different studios with EA at their backs. Now, I'm not saying this to take a stab at Battlefield or throw them under the bus, and whilst the games do have a lot of similarities, the BattleBit devs have openly said that whilst yes, they have taken inspiration from Battlefield, they don't view BattleBit as a Battlefield-like game. In fact, when asked if we'd ever see a more arcadey game mode with a minimap and less of the realistic features, they said no, if you want Battlefield, go and play Battlefield, because this isn't that. So as I mentioned earlier, this dev took part in a Q&A, and Rich Stanton from PC Gamer ran an article on this, and he says there, several questions were targeted towards DICE's Battlefield series, and specifically what BattleBit delivers that in recent years fans feel Battlefield hasn't. The Liquid Horse commendably resisted the temptation to take any shots at the game that clearly inspired and underpins much of their own, instead choosing a more optimistic view of things. "We are just some newbies in this field," said the developer. "DICE probably know things way better than we do. What happened in the last few years there wasn't their fault. I think they would still be able to deliver an absolute stunner of a Battlefield if they would have the time and freedom." And I have to say, for the most part, I agree with him here. I certainly believe the reason the game launched in such a shoddy condition was because some EA suits came along and basically ordered them to shove it through the door. No matter the condition of the game, they said it will release in October 2021 or whenever it was, come hell or high water. Furthermore, I think that many of the puzzling design decisions, like the specialist system, arguably one of the most disliked features of the game, was likely EA's idea and their doing, and not DICE's. I recently put a video out called 5 Things I Don't Want to See in the Next Battlefield, and those 5 things I listed were the Ranger, Boris's sentry turret, armor plates, the railgun tank, and the newly renamed gunships. I specifically wanted to focus on smaller individual items like gadgets or weapons, but from the comments on that video, I can see that there was like an overwhelming trend of people saying, "But Ghost, what about the specialist system?" And I agree, I don't think the specialist system really fits for Battlefield. I can see why these characters work well in a game like Overwatch or Apex Legends, where, firstly the aesthetic of those games is a lot lighter, a lot more colourful, more sort of cartoony. It's not a war-torn battlefield like, well, Battlefield. Plus, you've only got 1 of each hero per team, whereas in Battlefield you can have 64 players on a single team, and therefore tons of the same specialist, which, it just looks really silly. In fact, you can see the problems that it's created and the lengths that DICE have had to go to sort of help us distinguish between friend and foe. Whenever you look at somebody in Battlefield 2042, their name pops up, as well as a big red diamond and their health bar. And I think without those things, you wouldn't really know if it was a friendly or an enemy. The previous games had this down perfectly. All of the different factions had a specific look, so if you were playing against a Chinese engineer or a Russian engineer, let's say in Battlefield 4, and you were a US engineer, you just knew instantaneously that that was the specific look that only a Russian soldier had, or only a Chinese soldier had. Furthermore, you had the voice lines in Chinese and Russian, so again, if you heard a soldier around a corner and you know the enemy team is Russia and you hear a Russian voice line, you know there's an enemy there. It just worked perfectly and there was no need to change it at all. Now, the reason I didn't want to go there in my video is because I'm almost certain that these specialists will return in some form or another for the next Battlefield game. And I know this is probably going to upset a lot of people. And believe me, I hope that I'm wrong. And the reason I think this is because of EA and current trends in gaming. As the Liquid Horse suggested, I do think that EA was most likely behind the specialist system. These days, it just feels to be like games are made more and more with monetization as the first priority and gameplay and player experience as the second, instead of the other way around. Now, I think any developer would definitely tell you that they never set out to make a bad game or a game that people don't like. I think they try to make the best game they can, but I think it's the publishers like EA that come in and mess with things and sort of, demand that certain elements be added to the game. And I think it's evident with DICE and EA cramming the specialists into the Battlefield franchise that this is most likely the case. And that's not the only game either. Just look at Diablo 4. Now, don't get me wrong, Diablo 4 on the whole is a good game. I'm enjoying my time playing it, but there are lots of things that players dislike about the game. For a starter, they've made it an always online game where you can run into other players at random. So there's sort of like a share world, even though you're not partied up with people. Just like if you're playing an MMO like World of Warcraft, you will see other players running around. And they've apparently done this to help with social interaction. But I can 100% tell you, nobody is interacting with anybody at random in Diablo 4. Just like in Diablo 3, you're going to be playing with your friends. You're going to be playing with people you know who you have on your friends list. You're not randomly pairing up with people running around in the game. And Diablo has never had this. So why is that the case now? And as a direct result of this of course means that you cannot play the game offline. Now, why do they not want you to be able to play the game offline? Because the game has an in-game store and they always want you to have access to the store so that you can purchase cosmetics. Why do they want you running around seeing what other players are wearing? Because they might have a cosmetic that they've purchased from the store and then you might go and want to purchase that same cosmetic. That's just a small example, but I'm almost certain that when a lot of these decisions are taken, they are just simply taken with monetization in mind and not what the players want. And that's exactly the reason why I think specialists are going to return in the next game. Of course, if they had a class system, they could have different avatars, sort of like they did in Battlefield 5. That was sort of the precursor for the full-blown specialist system, right? You had different soldiers that you could purchase, whether it be like an assault soldier that looked a certain way, but as soon as you start adding different looks into the mix, the players have to sort of learn, okay, is this new soldier that looks this certain way and has this certain skin, is that an assault player? Is it a support player? Like what is it? And it simply doesn't offer as many options for EA to monetize the game as the specialist system does. Furthermore, I think that the fact that they've now sort of landed on a mixture of the specialist system with the class system integrated within it is perhaps going to make EA think twice and say, hold on a minute, maybe we don't have to scrap the system completely, maybe we can get away with this in the next game. Anyway, personally for me, I sincerely hope that isn't the case. Whilst there are some players out there who do enjoy the specialists and have never had anything bad to say about them, I do feel as a Battlefield veteran that the Battlefield games just played better and were more enjoyable, at least to me, when we had a class system in there. I also know it's going to bring back a lot of players, and there are just tons of people out there who, if they even hear the word specialist in the next game, they're going to run a mile and nobody's going to pre-order the game. So it's certainly going to be interesting to see, whether that happens or not. I really hope that I'm wrong about this, but I'd be interested to see what you guys think down below. So as always, guys, feel free to leave your comments down there, and I will chime in and try and answer as many of you guys as I can. If you did enjoy today's video, leave a like, subscribe for more Battlefield, and I'll see you guys in the next one.